So for example, so this is where I want to kind of get into some of the issues. So if war is taking place in other places and a country is getting stronger by strong arming other people and picking up countries left and right, we should stay out of it.
Yes. If it doesn't threaten our country, then yes.
But let's just say Russia. Well, let's just stay out of it, guys. Russia picks up Ukraine, guys, don't do anything. China picks up Hong Kong, guys, just don't do anything. China's like, listen, we're big enough. Screw it. Australia seems weak. So why don't we put a 10-year plan to go take over Australia? Look, guys, just don't do anything. Does that also mean as other power empires keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, we just sit on the sidelines and do nothing?
Once they get to Canada, I'd start getting concerned.
Best way to deal with the China threat is to look at why China's a threat. China at one point was a country that was starving to death by the tens of millions. We have to look at why that actually happened, why they've gone from that to being arguably the second or possibly most powerful country on earth. And it's because of the fact that cronies in the U.S. and other Western countries realized that the best way they could protect their market share of their various industries that they were in was to create such a high regulatory and tax burden in the U.S. and in North America and in other Western countries that they would basically shut out all the rest of their competition, create such a high barrier to entry that more disruptive, smaller competitors could not compete. They did that knowing that eventually they would poison the water so much domestically that even they couldn't produce here. But they were fine with that because they were already working to develop good, cozy relationships with dictatorial regimes overseas like China, and then use the U.S. military to protect their goods and services that they're making over there all the way back here to sell back to the American people. That is the problem. The root problem of China is that the U.S. and the West, the regulatory and tax structure in this country, I mean, you run businesses, I ran businesses, it's so high that there are people that are moving all their jobs over there. If we made it more fertile ground for people to do business here, people are going to want to do business here instead of a country that's telling their company, you can't even criticize us or we won't let you work here. We won't let you operate here.
I think that's right. And I also think that, that we have to be somewhat realistic. I think that the hubris of the American national federal government and its spokespeople is so out of control that people have this like empire mentality. So the question becomes, can we let China take Taiwan? Should we let them do that? Now I don't want the Chinese Communist Party to rule Taiwan. I would rather Taiwan be more free than less free. I want everyone to be free. The truth is that we cannot stop them from doing that. And the idea that we somehow, what do you want to go to, an H-bomb war and destroy half of the world and then they still take Taiwan after that? We do not have an option to have a direct military confrontation with Russia or China. Humanity cannot survive that. In the broader picture, if you're talking about countries dominating other countries, I don't think there's too many examples where a poorer country goes and takes over a richer country. That doesn't tend to happen. It's a richer, more powerful country that takes over a poorer country.
Okay.
The best defense against that is having us and our allies be as rich and powerful.
Can I go to your
by the way,
the answer to that is free market capitalism. That's how you produce wealth. So you want to keep your economy as free market as possible so that you are as wealthy as possible and therefore not vulnerable to being taken over by other
I got a follow-up
countries.
for you, but you want to say something? By the way, I said Hong Kong earlier is Taiwan correction. But go ahead. Thank you for doing that. Go ahead.
What you talked about the abolishing. That all sounds.
I don't talk about that's Milton Friedman talks about.
You were bringing that up.
Yes.
The problem you have with that is when you say those words, the average American gets really afraid because what the government is, everyone always said here, is a monopoly. No. So there are many communities now, and the lockdowns taught us this. They have lost the institutional knowledge to support themselves because they've been supported by government for so long. They literally cannot support themselves. So if you just knock down that government monopoly, they will have nothing. And they are afraid of that. Also, for many of these communities, they're in a bad spot. They are kept down by government and employed by government. So now when you take government away, they are no longer kept down, but they're also no longer employed. So we can't just, well, we can, but we shouldn't just abolish government. What we should do is support the community in supporting itself. Right? And there are policies you can do to begin that. One of the policies I had is if you are a New York State resident and you're going to, pay your taxes at the end of the year, you can take up to $250 of that you would send to the state and instead send to any nonprofit. And if it's a local nonprofit supporting localism, it's $500. And you might go, $500, how much is that? What if it's 1,000 people doing it? 10,000 people doing it? You can begin to support nonprofits locally, community, not government-sponsored nonprofits. Government-sponsored nonprofits are simply government agencies that are not unionized, but actual local communities that will assist and get the communities up and running. People do need help. I just believe in my heart, and I think everyone here does, communities and families are going to be better at supporting people than some government agency. If we support that first, then government will either go away or somehow get better. I don't know if it can get better, but it'll just begin to go away because community will support community. And that's the piece. We have to begin to support communities first.
So, okay, can capitalism stand on its own without law and order?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, you need
Who
law
says
and
no
order.
law and order?
But
Okay.
that's, I mean, look, what you need, but just to be
that?
more specifically, when we're talking about law and order, let's be clear about what we're talking about. What you need is the protection of people and property.
Yeah.
Like, that's very specifically what you need, that people and their property need to be protected against aggressors. Now, whoever you think should do that, that service certainly has to be done.
Correct.
The problem that we have today under state policing is that they're always either doing more than that or less than that, right? So you have things where you have gun control and the war on drugs and these kind of militarization of the police and tens of thousands of SWAT raids a year, to the point where, like, you know, my friend Tim Pool, who you know on the Timcast show, he's been swatted like multiple times because it's that easy to just swat someone.
Yeah.
You can literally just call them and go, oh, here they're holding people or they're killing people here, and they go, and it's by the fourth time it's happened, the police department isn't going, yeah, we probably don't believe you because you've already done this 3 times. So we have this one thing where they're going well beyond protecting people and property, and they become an authoritarian force. And then we have other examples in a lot of these blue cities right now where they're doing less than that, not protecting property, not protecting, you can shoplift up to $1,000 in San Francisco or whatever exact the rule is, and that leads to chaos. So what you want to find is you want to get as close as possible to the perfect equilibrium of protecting people and property, no more and no less. So I personally, I think private security, it does a better job of that than state police do. So I'd want to see that expanded as much as possible.
So
That's the
gun
policy
rights.
issue, right? Why do we have things like, why is possession of a drug a crime? Right? That's a type of thing we're talking about. Why is some activity that doesn't hurt anybody, why is that a crime? Right? These are victimless crimes.
Is selling it a crime?
Why would it be a crime?
Selling cocaine a crime?
It is a crime. It should not be.
It is a crime. It shouldn't be.
Correct.
Because it's my choice whether I want to buy it or not.
I can go to the FDA and I can get a drug that will get me hooked on opioids.
Should anything be illegal to sell? I asked Joe this question. Should anything be illegal to sell?
Yes, there are issues that you don't want to sell certain things to certain ages. Of course, you can have age restrictions on things to sell, 100%.
Should I be able to sell super EMPs? Should I be able to sell nuclear to help you have nuclear power? Should I? If you got the money, you got all the billions, maybe I want to sell it to you as an individual.
Well,
should I be able to sell that to you?
If there's someone who can afford to buy a nuclear power
There's
plant.
a lot of guys today that can.
Yes, if they can buy a nuclear power plant and they want a nuclear power plant, they're going to get a nuclear power plant. If they actually want it, they're going to go get it. It doesn't matter.
And no one has. So this is a question that libertarians get asked a lot because we're against the war on drugs and the war on guns, and so people will go to the extreme and say, well, what about nukes? It's important to note that no person outside of a state or government has nukes right now, not because they can't get them, but because who else but a government would want to have nukes? In fact, the entire nuclear energy system we have right now, which was originally built more towards the production of nuclear weapons than actual nuclear energy, which is why it's not as efficient as things like thorium plants and things like that, is because it was government leading the way on it, saying, well, no, our top priority is having nuclear bombs, before they realized that it would destroy the planet and that they couldn't use them as freely as they were using them, like in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That wasn't going to be a new arsenal that they would use all the time. But the point of that is, absent the need by a central authority, by a centrally planned authority to rule over others, there's not really a good reason to have a nuke. It's not something you're be able to use in
Not
like
a good reason to have
defense.
a lot of things, though. I'm just asking, like,
hold on,
the
you're
only
asking
question
a
I'm asking.
that we're nowhere near.
I'm asking a question. Wait a minute.
We're nowhere near this.
I'm asking a question because I'm asking the question to challenge the philosophy if there's a limit to the philosophy. I'm not asking it because tomorrow I want to buy a nuclear weapon.
Of course there's
so
a
let
limit.
me go to a different area.
Let me touch this piece.
Yeah.
This is common. Well, then we'll all die. We'll all explode. The world will end. let's start having those conversations. Let's start having conversations on what type of machine gun we can have or whatever. Let's have that conversation, not whether I can defend myself in my home. We are so far from what you're talking about. It's another planet.
I don't.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.